Okay guys, it's almost the end of June, which means that we're officially almost halfway through 2025, which is very crazy.
That's crazy.
And it also means that
it.
yeah, I can't believe it either. It also means that it's time for our mid-year money check-in. Basically, we decided this year we wanted to do two big updates with you guys on how our budgets are going for the year. So one right now at the midway point of the year to see how we're doing so far against what we wanted to spend and where we wanted to be at this point of the year. And then we'll do another one at the very end of the year when it's time to close out our budgets. So for now in this video, we're gonna be talking about how much money we've spent, saved, and invested so far for the first 6 months of the year. So January, February, March, April, May, and June. So in case you're new here or you haven't heard us talk about this before, Dennis and I actually both use our budget tracker that we made. We actually have a template that's free, available for you to use if you want to.
We do.
It'll always be on our description box below, also on our website, but for now we'll also link it on screen if you do wanna download it and use it yourself. But basically how it works is at the beginning of the year, we both set up exactly how much money we'd love to spend in our ideal standard month. So per month, per category. And then after that, every single month of the year, we track how we're doing against those budget categories. So we basically keep track of what we actually are spending and see how it lines up to where we want it to be at on a monthly category basis. That's kind of how it goes.
And hopefully everything's going well.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
that's always the goal, and that's what we'll get into today too. But also to give you a quick summary of how it works for us as well, we're self-employed, we pay ourselves out a set salary every single month. So even though we're self-employed, we have that set amount.
Yeah.
It's $4,459.91 per month each.
To be exact.
Yeah, to be very exact. I think that's everything I have to cover.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's
I'd
like
say
the
so.
high level overview. So now we're gonna get into the results of how we did for the first half of this year and
Let's see
share
how it goes.
everything with you. Okay, so we're gonna kick things off with our slide deck. Actually, you can see it on screen as well, but we're gonna be looking down at it and taking you through what we call our money wrapped presentation, which is always fun to do it in presentation form. Okay, so let's kick it off with the high level total spending numbers and results. So for the first 6 months of the year, remember this is a cumulative amount, so not every month, but the year so far in total, I've spent $17,952.95.
And I've spent $16,976.55.
Honestly,
So,
looking fairly close.
quite a bit of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
That's my thoughts.
Dennis
right
was,
off the bat.
when he was first looking at this, he said, why are these numbers so high? Because last year, you might remember, we did quarterly updates, so this is way more than that.
I was freaking out. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? Like, how is it that we could possibly have that much more money spent versus last year? But
Yeah, double the amount of time, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that we are over budget, so we'll get into what that looks like, but we are over budget for the year, but that's our high level numbers off the top. So now let's take you through on a month by month basis first. I'll go first with my numbers. It's kind of fun to see it in a trend form like this. For me, when I look at it, it's interesting to know what months I went over budget or under budget comparatively. So to kind of take it from the top, remember how I said that we both get paid, so each $4,459.91. Of that, we invest $2,000 a month, and then we aim to spend from the other $2,459. So you can see that for 3 of the months, March, May, and June, I was actually either under budget or pretty much on budget. I was slightly over in May, but that part is pretty negligible when it's only like $50 or so.
Yeah.
But 3 months I was over budget, specifically January and February. So I actually had a really high start to the year. And then I've been kind of on a good solid flow since then. April was a little higher, but I also went to the dentist. So I know
Feb
that.
is pretty high.
Yeah, February is really high and January is high.
I want to hear more about that one.
Yeah, we'll get into it when you talk about the specific categories, but I do know January was some travel expenses. February is a little bit more on the gifts side of things too.
Yeah.
But looking at it, seeing a $3,800 month is definitely kind of makes me feel uncomfortable, like seeing the number. It feels like a lot. I know if I look at my month by month last year, I don't think I had any individual month that was that high.
Yeah.
So that I don't love. But anyway.
It's been a weird year so far.
Yeah, it's been higher on the spending side. But my monthly average has been $2,992.16. Again, I will say when I look at it like that, that's not a crazy amount. Keep in mind, this includes rent. This includes internet, utility. This is every single expense we have. To spend $2,992 in a month is not outrageous on the top. It's the fact that my goal is to only spend $2,459. So I'm about $500 over budget every single month. That's what I'm tracking. Not ideal. For anyone who's curious though, that money, we don't have it doesn't go to zero, our checking accounts every month, right? So we're not actually going into debt or anything like that's happening at all. I have a buffer of several $1,000s in my checking account. So basically that buffer is just getting lower until I start
eating into that basically.
Exactly, until I start to even out again later this year. So that's me so far. Let's get on to you.
All right, so for me, our graphs actually look quite
Different?
Quite different. I actually have my highest month is higher than your highest month.
Oh,
which
that's
is
true.
really, really weird. I don't think we noticed that before.
Also, that never happened.
That never happens. But same story for me. You can see that there's like 3 key months that I would say are a bit higher than what I would like. You know, February, April, and May. February, I feel like for me, January we came off of our trip, but clearly like there wasn't really much going on there.
You had a pretty low-key month.
February was a big month with car rentals, which is going to be a really big theme. We'll get into the details later, but that's going to be a really big theme across the bigger months. April, I think, similar thing. I also had the dentist, which would probably be the biggest thing. And then May, I'm not even sure what happened. There was a whole bunch of spending in May, but we'll get into the details in a second.
Yep.
I will say overall, we can see that my monthly average was $2,829.42, which is lower than Steph.
It's lower than me, although he is probably more uncomfortable with that number too. It's funny though, because most of your months you were under that amount or on it. It's just two really high numbers. So now we're gonna get into, that's the monthly breakdown. Now we're gonna get into the by category mid-year spending so far. So you can see these are all the different budget categories that we have, other than rent, because it would be obviously off the chart. Our rent costs are gonna be the most. But otherwise we have all the different categories here. First, again, just for me specifically, this is just my spending. You can see groceries is the highest, $353.94. It's actually interesting because groceries is always our highest category when we look at it in this way other than rent. We've done a pretty good job being to budget, although this makes it feel over budget because I think it's $325 a month each that we wanted to spend this year. But I will say we did a lot more Costco stock-ups earlier this year just based on it being situational.
We did.
We had more opportunities to go. So those months that are higher, it's not crazy amounts of grocery trips. It was those bigger stock-ups. So I guess we'll see how that evens out for the later half of the year.
Sounds like we might need to reevaluate the stock-ups then, in that case.
Yeah, and how we budget for them. Although none of it really bothers us, but it makes the numbers a little more skewed too.
Yeah.
It can have its own category for that. I've actually heard someone talk about that recently, doing a stock-ups budget category.
True.
Anyway, something to think about. Otherwise, my spending, restaurants is one of the higher ones, not shocking for me, although you'll know in the past years I've done a much better job more recently bringing that down.
Used to be much higher.
You can see, like I mentioned, gifts and donations is a higher one as well. Other including haircut, because I got my one main haircut for the year in this half of the year. So that was all just one expense that then got split up amongst the year, or the 6 months so far.
All right, so mine, similar situation. Groceries is, at the top. I guess they should be similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Groceries should be the same actually, but
well, we split it other than like once in a while. There might be something small we get at the grocery store.
Random, right?
Yeah.
I guess the other big one for me is gifts and donations. So that's really big. For me specifically, Steph touched on our LA work trip, but we actually had the opportunity to bring out my mom, which is really, really fun.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. I've also had so many different family graduations and birthdays and stuff that have been happening. The graduations have been big, which is I'm super happy, obviously, for everyone in my family who's graduating. But that does also come with, you want to make sure that you're giving your cousin or whoever something good as they move on to this next journey of life, right? So there's that. There's fitness. You see that. Haircuts have actually been a little bit higher. I feel like I've been going to get a haircut a lot more recently.
Every 3 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, it's been a lot more than I've done in the past. But I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where you look good, you feel good. Fitness. Yeah.
That's new for you this year.
So fitness is a big one that's new for me this year. So I actually registered for a gym. I'm also I pay for my mom's membership as well. So basically I pay for 2 memberships along with basketball.
Good point.
So it's going to be a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think that's it for the main category, but we're going to get more granular into the details in a second too. Before we wrap up with this though, we have to talk about investing because we're not just spending all our money. Luckily, we're investing more than we're spending, which is great. That's always the goal for us. So this year, we'll give our numbers first. I've invested $24,985 so far this year, so the last 6 months.
Nice. I've invested $26,521.75. $7,000 of that approximately did go into my emergency fund. If you guys will remember, I did deplete my emergency fund. I don't know when was that, end of last year. So I really wanted to make sure that I upped that amount and actually replenish that emergency fund, which I did.
Yeah. So the other part of it you invested, that part in the emergency fund. Mine all went to my investments, to a combination of my TFSA, FHSA, and RSP, which recently just finished maxing out the RSP. So all of those are maxed out, which is exciting. Keep in mind that part of these numbers, though, come from our end of year bonus from last year that we invested at the beginning of this year. That's a big part of it. So we've both done a good job investing at least $2,000 a month every single month. Dennis has actually added an extra $100 here or there when he could. It's kind of the difference in our spending numbers. He's also put into savings and investments, which is great. And then that initial bump at the beginning of the year too from the end of year bonus. So yes, very excited to see these numbers, and that is a wrap for this part of the video, but we're gonna go take a little second to put the presentation down and walk you through the more detailed what we've spent month by month. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the details and actually go over what our budget category goal is for every single category in our budget. So what we wanted to spend, and then what our average was over the last 6 months. So how we stacked up against those different budget category goals. So we'll go category by category, and then each of us separately, since we have different budget goals for how much we want to spend. But actually our first few are the same because we split them 50-50. So let's start with rent. Our budgeted amount for rent was $970 because that is we each paid. So again, $970 each per month for rent. Although we did it's June right now, and we just got our annual budget increase.
Rent increase?
Yes, rent increase. Did I say budget increase?
Yeah, you did.
Our annual rent increase, now that our landlords happen to be increasing the rent every single year by a little bit because we are in a rent-controlled apartment, which is great. So it went up to $990 each. So technically our average over the last 6 months is $973.33. Basically just $970 a month all the way up until June, now $990 a month moving forward. Then for internet, our budgeted amount is $36.72. Our actual average amount was $38.70. I think in February, our plan increased a little bit.
It did.
Yeah, well, you can see we're only about $2 over what we budgeted, so we're paying a total of what, $4 total combined on a monthly basis.
It reminds me that I need to call them, actually.
Yeah, we did want to call them to negotiate it back down again, so it's not like it's a big difference, but we stay on top of these things. And then for our utilities, we typically budget an average of $30 each per month, and our average has been $29.02 each. So pretty good, under what we planned for it to be. In general, we have very nice and low utilities, so we're happy with that. Okay, so now on to the ones that are similar but slightly different. For groceries, we kind of touched on this earlier, but our budget category goal is $325 each. My average so far this year has been $353.94.
Mine has been $345 and 44 cents. Slightly different, but for the most part, it should be the same.
I think the only difference is that once in a while, I'll go back to the grocery store to get snacks or food for my book clubs that I go to. And then sometimes I don't include those in our splits too. So maybe a little bit different because of that. In general, we're not unhappy with this amount. We kind of like rated it as a yellow. We do a rating system with our budget. If it was good and on budget, way too over, or like a warning sign. I think it's mostly just high because of those multiple Costco trips this year. I actually looked down at the month by month to see, and that seems to be the case. So we'll see if we're going to continue to go to Costco that often though, and we do use everything we get there, then we'd have to include that into our grocery budgets, but nothing to be concerned about so far. On to the more fun categories, I guess you could call it. The first one being restaurants. My goal is to spend $150 a month on restaurants. My average has been $231.74. I was actually doing a really good job at the beginning of this year. I think the first 3 months of the year, I was under $150 a month. And then the last 3 months, I was over every single month. 2 of them being over like $300 and something for the month as well. It's interesting because I'm not overly upset about where I spent that money. My plans were on budget. It was when we did something unexpected. Like we went out on a double date with friends. I spent an extra $100 and something there. Boom, it's gonna be over my budget when I'm already at budget.
Like a birthday dinner you weren't expecting to spend as much as you did. Like kind of one of those things. Yeah,
it's all been stuff like that. So I'm not overly upset about it. I know I'm being intentional with my restaurant spending, but it's something I'm gonna keep an eye on. I think next month my goal is to kind of go a little under budget to get me back on track. Kind of hard in the summer though, so we'll have to see, because I feel like in the summer is when we want to be out and about and trying new spots. But again, I've still been $0 on Uber Eats. I haven't ordered any takeout in over 1.5 years now, so that's been going great, and it's definitely still saving me a lot of money.
Nice.
So for you?
So for me, I budget $125 instead of Steph's $150. And my actual average spend was $124.33.
Which is so funny, you're right on budget.
Which is right below, which is amazing. Like that's clutch.
Doesn't that make you feel good?
It makes me feel good. And it also makes me feel even better because that means that it was like I like the motto of just like hibernating during the winter.
Yeah.
You know? Having your like it's easier to have your regular routine, I find, in the winter.
Yeah.
Whereas the summertime everyone is super sporadic. It's like let's go here, let's go there, let's try this spot. So I feel like if you're under budget during the winter, then
you're on a good pace.
You're on good pace in case anything happens during the summer, which it likely will, given the vibes are just so much better.
So I'm not on good pace, but maybe I'll have him take me to the restaurants a few times. That's what I'm picking up from this. For coffee shops, I budget $50 a month. By the way, coffee shops isn't getting like a daily coffee. I make my daily coffee at home, but sometimes on the weekend or if we're doing something, we'll get some pastries and coffees. I'll buy them for both of us. We'll go back and forth, stuff like that. So just to make that clear, I budget $50 a month. My average has only been $41.08, which I think is the lowest it's ever been in a year.
True.
Doing a really good job, but I'm still getting some great coffees, so it's working very nicely.
Nice.
What about you?
I budget $20 and I'm actually below budget again at $19.67.
How are you doing this?
Average.
You're like right below both of them.
Well, we're off to a good start here, but I have a feeling we're gonna, it's gonna derail at some point.
Good start. Okay, public transportation, I budget $50 a month. My actual average was $34.43.
So for me, I budget $100 apparently, and I spent an average of $43.03.
A little higher than mine.
So a little bit higher than yours.
So that's public transportation. Onto Ubers specifically. I don't budget a specific amount for this because I don't want to ideally spend. Instead, you'll kind of see it when I get to it, but I have a bigger other bucket and then that gets dispersed. So anyway, I don't want to spend money on Ubers, so I budget $0, but I've spent an average of $47.78. I think I have to assume, we can go back in the past videos, but that's higher than I've had in the past.
Yeah.
It feels like I've been taking a few more Ubers this year, in the winter months especially.
True.
What about you?
So for me, I budget $0 and I spent an average of $23.09.
He's less quick to Uber.
Yeah, for me, it's specifically for basketball. So I think there was like specific days during the winter time where it was either just like freezing or like, I don't know, we wanted to stay home and watch more of like the basketball game or something right before going to basketball.
Game, yeah.
So it made sense to call an Uber. So we did that.
Normally bus though.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay, so the next category is car rental. I only added this in because he has a lot of car rental expenses. For me, I budget $0. I've spent $0. Although I do know that in July I'm gonna have some car rental expenses too.
True.
But that's for me. What about you?
For me, I budget $0 and I spent an average of $158.69. So this is interesting. I budget $0 because this is the first year that I actually have this category within my budget. So this year I'm kind of using it as a tester to see how much I actually do end up spending.
Yeah.
And that data will actually, ideally inform me of what makes sense to actually budget moving forward.
Yeah.
And it could also give me more data on whether it makes sense to even continue renting a car. Like, am I spending
One day should we get a car?
Yeah, like, am I spending as much as it would be worth to have, my own car? Who knows?
Yeah.
We shall see.
Because for anyone who's curious too, we don't have a car right now. We live in the city. We can walk and take public transit most places.
That's true.
But we've been a little bit more frequently renting a car to go see our family more. It makes it easier. We, in theory, can get there by train, but maybe we want to drive them around, have more flexibility in our schedule. So that's for the most part why we've been doing that.
Yeah, for me, it's allowed me to be more available.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a good word to put it.
That's the big thing.
We're getting to that phase in our lives where we got to be more available. Okay, massage therapist. I get a massage every single month. It costs $146.90. So my average is $146.90.
Nice.
One a month. It's been going well.
Nice. $0 budget, $0 spent.
Yeah, you don't go to them.
Done.
But I do. For the dentist is interesting. We, again, budget $0 for this because it's not a monthly expense, but we know that we're going, so we have it on here.
Yep.
We go twice a year. We pay for it out of pocket because we're self-employed, although we hopefully will have an update later this year that we're hoping to get some sort of
we're looking
plan
into
for this. Yeah, we're looking into this. So big star, that might change at some point. But for now, I spent an average of $48.83. That was just one trip to the dentist. I think for $290-something. That got split, divided by 6.
Yep.
Is yours the same? Yeah.
Mine is the exact same. $0 budget, $48.83 spent.
Yeah. Not too crazy.
Yeah.
Personal care. This is an exciting one for me this year. I budget $150 a month for personal care. Personal care, by the way, is like toiletries, makeup, shampoos, like anything like that.
Yeah.
And my average is only $143.30. Yeah, exciting, huh? I've been doing a very good job. In general, I'm never that upset at myself if I go over anyway, because for the most part, I know I'm pretty good at only buying things that I need.
Yeah.
Need is in quotes, because it's a choice to buy certain makeup products and stuff like that. But when I'm out of something, I repurchase. But yeah, I think I've just been very intentional and on budget this year, and luckily have been right at my max amount, which I'm happy about.
Nice.
What about you?
For me, I budget $100 and I spent $36.12 on average.
Yeah.
So
Same
well
stuff.
below budget. I don't think I'd really need to rejig this because I do think there are certain times where I do end up spending more money within the personal care category. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Good call. Okay, so gifts and donations. This again, we budget zero because it's not a set amount every single month. Although we're getting to the point where maybe we should have some sort of like lump sum because we typically are doing something, even though it's not a set amount. Maybe that's something will change in our budgets. But this year I've spent an average of $198.99 on this category. Again, I say I have no concerns with this though, because anytime I'm buying a gift or donating anything like that, I'm happy with that amount. So it's not an issue for me to be over budget technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, higher than normal because we had a few bigger things this year. One notable one that was like a big chunk that I remember in February is I treated you for Valentine's Day to a nice like staycation at this really nice hotel in Toronto called the Ace Hotel. Hopefully we can share some pictures or something actually because it was very fun.
It was fun.
So that was a bigger one, and then just a bunch of other stuff that's come up here and there. And you already touched on yours a bit, but what were your numbers?
So for me, I budgeted zero, spent an average of $280.54.
Big one.
So this is a very, very big one. You can see that it's significantly larger than Steph's even.
That's true.
And for me, we had a pretty big Mother's Day lunch where my mom came in. We all went to lunch, had a really great time, great restaurant. Obviously my mom's flight to LA, that also adds to that. Hotels, we have Steph's birthday, we have my friend who moved in, got him a gift. He bought a place.
That's true.
So there's been different like
life
events or milestones in some cases that, have caused me to spend more money within that category. Not normal, but it happens.
So next one is clothing. Again, I budget zero for this because again, I'm not trying to spend a monthly amount on clothing.
Yeah.
And my average amount was $166.72.
How does that make you feel?
I don't mind this at all. I gave myself like a yellow rating to keep an eye on it to not buy tons of more clothes for the rest of the year, but I've been very intentional with what I've been buying, which I've been liking. In general, again, it's not like I spent $100 this month, $300 this month here and there. It's more like in one month I spent $450, and in another month I spent 200 and something, and then zero the other months. That's kind of how I do it.
True.
A big thing this year has been shoes, though. Actually, I bought a new pair of shoes for the gym. Have not gone to the gym, so I've not worn them. Yeah, those were only like $180.
Completely forgot about those.
Yeah, so I bought those. I have not worn them yet, but I will, and they're good shoes. So that's basically Dennis was buying them, and if you got 2 pairs, you get free shipping. So I bought them at the same time, and when I do go back to the gym, I will have new shoes, which is good.
Nice.
Anyway, those were $180. I got 3 pairs of like boots and heels and stuff that I want to wear for work events. I waited till my other pair was like run to the ground, ripped to shreds, literally. Replaced that, but replaced it with 3 pairs. So that was an extra several hundred. So of this amount, almost all of it was on shoes. And then I think I spent a little bit on some shirts or something. So
for me,
you might be surprised here.
I budget zero. I spent $124.23 on average. So I actually thought this was going to be a lot higher than it is because it felt like I spent so much money on clothes.
If you guys know, he bought 1 clothing item last year.
I think it only felt that way because, like Steph said, I don't typically spend money on clothes. So when I do, in this case, wow,
felt like too much.
It felt like a lot.
I'm very proud of him for.
Yeah, but for me, I actually wrote down that it was 3 pairs of shoes, but it was actually 4.
Because also for the new
including the gym shoes, right? So I bought a new pair of sneakers. I bought some loafers. I bought just another pair of like some nice, just everyday casual shoes. Bought a bunch of clothes. Did I buy a bunch of clothes?
Not a bunch of clothes.
Not a bunch of clothes. Like literally, like I think
shirts.
I think 2 shirts and a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
So not actually a lot. But
the shoes that really up the price, that's why.
Yeah.
Shoes are expensive, yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully all this stuff lasts. My stuff usually does last, so I'm not, too concerned about that, but I probably need to get rid of some stuff.
Yeah. Moving on to the next category is travel. I budget zero because it's not a monthly amount. It's more here and there. Spent an average of $148.57. This is a combo of our trip to Kenya with Dennis's family. Specifically, I spent some money on different restaurants for the whole group of us, which was more. And then that was all in the January side of things instead of December. And then also our LA trip, again, for work. But there was a few things that we got here and there on the trip I spent money on. So not that much overall, considering those were bigger trips. But that was the average.
For me, a budget zero, spent $138.46 on average. Similar to Steph, Kenya trip was a big one. My expenses primarily were more so in December, and then January I had a little bit of like lingering expenses from that time, and then also LA as well. So same thing.
And our numbers are pretty similar, which makes sense. Subscriptions, I budget $14.34. I spend an average of $19.23.
I'm jealous.
Well, this is also the only reason it's even over. That $14.34 is on Spotify, which I did spend every month, but also for 2 months we got, I don't remember what it was, Disney Plus or Apple? Apple. We got an Apple subscription to watch Severance.
You gotta watch Severance.
And whatever else we watched at the time to take advantage. So I paid for that for 2 months, which brought me over, but as expected in the plans. What about you?
For me, I budgeted $23.72, and then Netflix decided to throw just a wrench in there and up their prices. So I think now I pay 27 something.
Expensive.
But apparently I've spent an average of $25.98.
Okay, fitness, budget zero because it's not a monthly expense. But I spent an average of $22.41 a month so far this year. This is for me, it's all basketball intramurals specifically.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, fitness, I budget $167.67. I spent $197.76. So
On average.
On average.
So getting to the end here, we have the other category that we also include our haircuts into. So it's a mix of other random expenses and haircuts. I budget $536.95 because it's kind of a catch-all for me. All those areas that are zero, I kind of take out of the other budget. And then also the haircuts too. I spent an average of $188.11. The majority of this, the bulk of it does come from my $800 hair appointment that happens once a year. Otherwise, I've been pretty good. The other stuff has been very small. Filing taxes software, Google Photos software, stuff like that really doesn't have its own category. I guess I could give it like an annual subscription category, but other works for
You
me.
probably could throw that into subscriptions though.
Maybe I could.
Especially the Google Photos.
It's good for us to think about this for next time.
So for me, I budgeted $356.80. And then I spent an average of $222.19. So for me, bought a new cutting board, spent money on like random things here and there. So like the convenience store buying like water bottles, like something really random, buying gum.
Well, on that note, the last category is home, which for Dennis, kind of just swap things up, $0 budgeted, $0 spent, because you throw those expenses into the other category. I decided to try and parse it out a bit more this year and put it in the home category. Maybe you will next year too, but I kind of went rogue and did this myself. So for home, I technically budget $0 because it's not something I'm spending on frequently. But I did spend an average of $159.07 on this category. Yeah, that's it for every single category. So you guys saw now like our overview of the high level, what it looked like, and now this more granular breakdown category by category. How would you say you feel overall?
I feel like we're spending too much this year, especially in comparison to other years. But I do also, like I said before, life does come in seasons. So maybe there is a point in time where you are spending a little bit more money. I think there's definitely, like after us doing this exercise, there's definitely some areas that I think I need to watch more and not spend as much money on. For example, the car rental area it's kind of, it's first year having it, but it's getting out of hand, I think.
That's fair. For me, I feel like doing the exercise actually makes me feel like, okay, all my spending has been very intentional. Nothing surprised me. I didn't forget about anything I spent money on. It's more that I had these big, we did the home updates and got some new shoes and did this gift and this, like all of that stuff being all in the same half of the year made us go over budget.
I guess you guys can see the difference in how we kind of view things in general.
Between the two of us,
Between the two of us.
Yeah.
The takeaways, at least.
Anyway, good start to the year.
All right, guys, so that's it for the mid-year money check-in. We'd also love to know how you're doing compared to your budget and what your biggest expense has been so far this year. Let us know down in the comment box below, and we will see you next week with another video, you guys.